Hi, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. Today I am going to share my thoughts on a novel that I read quite recently. Finished it up towards the end of 2020. Many of the books that I have shot videos discussing been books that I read a while back, and I wrote reviews for them at Goodreads. So I read aloud from what I wrote there, and that's why I'm able to remember in pretty decent detail everything that happened in the story, because I wrote it all down. I don't have the greatest memory for the plot of every single book that I have read, because I read voraciously and I go from one to the next to the next to the next. So I'm very grateful for Goodreads giving me a place to document my opinions, and when I go back to the reviews, either reading them aloud, and it brings me back to the time that I was reading the novels. Today's video is going to be about a book that I read quite recently. I probably therefore could speak off the cuff about it rather than reading off screen, because it's all pretty fresh in my mind. Finished it just about a week or so ago. Nevertheless, I like the way I put things down in my Goodreads reviews. I write them these days with these videos in mind, so try to put them in a way that I think will sound, competent read aloud. So without further ado, I am going to tell you my thoughts about The Magician's Assistant by the very talented Patchett. I grabbed a copy of this book from the borrowing library at my local train station back in the pre-COVID days, when I commuted into work at least once per week. So I figured I'd read this book, and then I would, be returning it to the train station, not knowing that it was going to be quite some time before I next commuted into Hoboken, Manhattan, or anywhere, by train anyway. My wife ended up reading this book before me, and she gave it her highest recommendation. She said, you have to read this book. And, I gave it to her. I said, here's a book I have lying around that I took out from the train station library. You should read it. She read it. She loved it. She said, okay, now it's your turn. So I took her up on it. I was planning to read it anyway. But it's always good to read a book that someone has recommended. And that's the case here. When I got around to it, I found myself sharing my wife's opinion that this is a wonderfully written novel. It is a quiet, slow-paced story. Don't grab a copy of this book if you're looking for international intrigue and a lot of car crashes and explosions and things of that nature. What you'll instead find within the pages of The Magician's Assistant is plenty of internal exploration by the protagonist to learn who she truly is, which starts out by embarking on a physical and emotional journey to discover who her deceased husband was. Early on in the book, we learn that Sabine's husband has just died. We also learn that his lover, Fawn, died of AIDS not long before, which is how we learn that Sabine was married to a gay man, the magician of the title, whom she assisted. I don't consider this to be a spoiler, because the reader is giving this information in the book's earliest pages. The next revelation, which comes as a total surprise to Sabine, is that her husband was not an orphan, bereft of any family, other than her and Fawn. Shortly after Parsifal's death, which is not caused by AIDS, which he did have, and that's what killed Fawn. But Parsifal was not sick from AIDS yet when he died of a ruptured aneurysm. We learn that Parsifal's husband and two sisters, plus a couple nephews, are alive and well. And to them, his name was Guy. Parsifal's greatest magic trick, it seems, was complete reinvention of himself. First version is a gay boy named Guy growing up in Nebraska, dreaming of being anyplace else. The second version is a gay man named Parsifal, with a wife as well as a male lover, who has found that place for himself in Los Angeles, California, where he performs magic shows for the joy of it and sells antique rugs for great profit. Sabine's willingness to be married to someone who is not physically attracted to women feels like a mystery to the reader, or at least it did to me. The only answer the book really gives us is that Sabine loved Parsifal and failed to find anyone else who made her feel the same way. So she accepts what seems to be half of a marriage at best. But when Sabine learns that Parsifal had been lying to her for years about having a family, and then she learns that Parsifal's mother and one of his sisters have traveled to LA to meet her, she throws herself into solving the full mystery of her husband's life. There is one more secret in store for her to learn about Parsifal, and I won't give that secret away because that would definitely go into spoiler territory. Instead, I will say that Sabine finds out that Parsifal's family is not full of people who drove him away over intolerance of his sexuality. That was her expectation. Her expectation that this must have been the explanation for Parsifal's secrecy and denial of his past is not met, which only deepens curiosity over decisions made by the man she assisted in work and loved off stage. And so Sabine goes back with her newly discovered in-laws to Nebraska, where she hopes to unearth the full story of the magician's life. By excavating through his past and getting to intimately know the people who share his blood, Sabine hopes to find a way to move on from torturous mourning. And this assistant, who is rather adept at magic tricks in her own right, is able to shuffle the cards of loss she has been dealt, and somehow pluck from the void the start of a brand new family and potential for happiness. Ann Patchett pulls us in with skillfully rendered prose that keeps readers hooked throughout the story's twists and turn, weaving a tale that is absorbing from its surprising start to its quietly satisfying conclusion. So I do highly recommend The Magician's Assistant, particularly if you are in the mood for a slow-moving, quiet, contemplative novel in which a whole lot happens and not a whole lot happens kind of all at the same time. Ann Patchett is a wonderful writer. I will definitely check out more of her books in the future. But for now, I just want to wish you all the best and sign off with a happy reading to you and yours.